Good evening. Buena tarde. First of all, I'd like to thank the Coast Salish peoples of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh for sharing their traditional territories with us. My name's Josh Patterson, and I'm the Executive Director of the BC Civil Liberties Association. I'll be moderating tonight's discussion. We are one of the co-sponsors of the event this evening, along with the Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers and Simon Fraser University's Vancity Office for Community Engagement. Thanks for joining us this evening to hear the very important and poignant story that will be shared with us. Very brief little bit about the BC Civil Liberties Association. We're Canada's oldest and largest human rights and civil liberties organization based here in Vancouver. And in recent years, we've been working to hold the Canadian government to account for its cooperation with governments abroad that torture their citizens. And particularly working to stop Canada transferring Afghan detainees to torture during Canada's war in Afghanistan. We are deeply concerned with the treatment of people by government and by the need to hold government to account for the abuses of people's rights. That's why we're proud to be a part of this evening's event. But we've only played the smallest of roles in organizing this event tonight. My being up here this evening makes it seem as if BCCLA has played a larger role than we have. We have a banner, so it sort of overstates our involvement. SFU's Vancity Office of Community Engagement generously contributed to make the rental of this room possible. Without them, we wouldn't be able to hold this event tonight. They're also making possible the archiving of this event online for those people who were not able to join us this evening. So thank you very much to SFU and the Vancity office there. The real work of organizing this evening was completely done by our partner, the Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers, which represented here tonight by Lauren Waldman of Toronto here in the centre, and Lobat Sadra Hashemi, who did a lot of work to pull together this evening's event. She's a lawyer, refugee lawyer here in Vancouver. The Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers, if I may just say a few bits about them, is a very new organization of lawyers, law students, and legal academics that has come together to promote refugee rights, to educate the Canadian public, to educate policymakers, and finally to educate judges in the courts about the importance of protecting refugee rights. They've been raising their voice in ways that we haven't heard before in the legal community and providing a truly excellent service, particularly as there has been an increasing assault on the rights of refugees by the federal government. So it's needed more than ever. And if you've heard anything in the news over the past year about the cuts to health care for refugees here in Canada, it is the Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers, along with doctors concerned for refugees, who are leading that legal fight to have that declared unconstitutional. And so great thanks to the Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers. So I would like now to invite Lobat to come up and say a few words. Thank you. And there will be a question and answer period afterwards that I'll be moderating. As you can see, there is filming in the room here tonight, and this will be recorded online. So if you have any problems with your image being recorded, please don't walk in the way of the cameras. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. I feel very lucky that we have Antonio, Rosa, and Lauren with us tonight, none of whom are from Vancouver. Antonio and Lauren from Toronto, and Rosa from Argentina. We're lucky to hear from them because each Rosa, Antonio, and Lauren have a unique perspective to bring to this very difficult discussion. What does it mean to try and get justice from the courts? How does a society move forward from mass human rights abuses and injustice to a place of justice? And how can a society try and cope with trying to heal these wounds and seek reconciliation, while at the same time seeking justice and even retribution against those who've committed unspeakable wrongs and atrocities? These are only a few of the many questions that are raised by the story of Rosa and Antonio. Rosa Gomez and Antonio Savone were both political prisoners detained in a secret Argentinian prison called D2 in Mendoza during the country's brutal Dirty War in the 1970s. Tonight we'll hear how decades later, having only seen each other's eyes through the slits in their cell, they reunited to bring their torturers to justice. I really want to thank Rosa and Antonio for talking with us tonight, because what they're going to be speaking of is not easy to share. And I'll leave it to Lauren Waldman to give a personal introduction to Rosa and Antonio, and I'd like to introduce him. Lauren Waldman is a human rights lawyer who's dedicated his career to advancing the law to protect the rights of refugees. And he began working with refugees in the 1970s, and some of his first clients were from Argentina, fleeing Argentina's military dictatorship. And he worked for many years both on behalf of refugees fleeing Argentina to Canada, as well as trying to assist with the movement to bring democracy to Argentina. He was able to attend in 2011 a war crime trial in Argentina with Antonio, so many years after he first began his work with Argentinian refugees. Lauren is a mentor to many and has definitely been a mentor to me, and not only because of his dedication to improving the law, but also in his kindness and heart that he brings to so many of his clients for so many years. Lauren will be interpreting Rosa's words for us, and we're also very fortunate that Elena St. John, who is here in the audience, and Teresita Salinas Archina have come to our aid at the last minute and will be interpreting the event for Rosa. Both Elena and Teresita are excellent interpreters based in Vancouver that I get the privilege of working with and learning from all the time. We've done many cases together, and I very much thank them for their assistance tonight. Now I invite Lauren to provide some background to the story and to introduce Rosa and Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming here tonight. So first I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about Rosa and Antonio. Antonio will tell part of his story, so I'll just tell how I met him. I met Antonio in 1978, shortly after he was released from prison in Argentina with his wife and three young children. Two
at the time.
No, three. No, sorry, three. Come on. 3 young children. Yes, Leo was a baby.
Yeah.
He's now 30 and has you're a grandchild. Yes. And I helped Antonio get his papers in Canada at that time, and I've known Antonio ever since. How I met Rosa was one day in 2011, Antonio calls me up and says, "I've got to go to Argentina, I've got to testify." And I didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, no, I read the newspaper, and he was all excited, and Rosa's alive, and she testified in the trials, and I want to go and testify. So that began sort of the odyssey that led us to today, where Antonio and I went to Argentina, and we had the experience of I had the experience of watching Antonio testify at the trial of the generals who planned and executed the repression in Mendoza and were directly responsible for signing the orders that led to his and Rosa's detention and torture. And so, and for me, after 30 years of working with refugees, to experience a trial of people who had been responsible for, horrible torture was, probably one of the highlights of my career. Why are we all here today? What's the significance of hearing Antonio and Rosa's story? Is it just, curiosity? I don't think so. I think that there's a lot that we can learn about the rule of law. Spend some time wondering how it was, and there'll be some details that Antonio will tell you that maybe should cause us to reflect even more. How it was that a civilized society that had structural weaknesses and perhaps in its democracy, but still reached a point where all of the institutions were destroyed, or were usurped by a small group in the military who suspended all of the legal constitutional rights the judges were either, the judges who attempted to do anything were either killed or removed from the bench. Lawyers who defended political prisoners were killed or forced into exile. The media was forced into silence, all within a matter of a few months. It was a state terrorism that managed to silence the majority of the people. Some supported, the most were terrified and acquiesced. I mean, one of the stories I recall is I went to Argentina just after I was with Antonio, and I met with a lawyer who was more or less my age, and so she'd been a lawyer during the dictatorship, and we started talking about that, and at a certain point she looked at me and she said, you know, I was there during the dictatorship and I didn't leave, and I didn't do anything to help. You know, was I wrong? And I looked at her and said, well, it's not for me to judge. I mean, I don't know, would I have the courage to confront them, knowing that it probably meant that I would be killed, or I don't know. I mean, it's not for me to judge. But, you know, 30 years later, she was asking herself the question about whether she had done the right thing. And I said, one thing's clear: if you were, you know, directly involved in helping, then then we have nothing to talk about. But if you were just there and didn't have the courage to confront them, well, I mean, how many people did? So, I mean, there's lots of lessons that we learn, and, you know, we think about what happened in the residential schools here in Canada, and how we, you know, how maybe many of us didn't know, but those who did remained silent. They cried out for help, and no one listened. And now, even today, many of the people that are responsible aren't being brought to justice, and the process that we've embarked upon isn't really one that's really giving justice and to the people who were suffered in horrible ways. So each society has to learn from the experiences in other societies, and the experience in Argentina is really a remarkable one. Since Nuremberg, I don't think there's been another experience like this, where the people who perpetrated the human rights abuses during the dictatorship are being brought to justice in this way, through fair trials, with witnesses testifying, sentences, and a fair judicial process. But yet, you know, over 100 people have been found guilty and sentenced to very lengthy prison terms for their role. And as time goes on, and more people are being charged, and and Rosa will explain in a minute that the people that are now going to be brought to trial in Mendoza are the actual torturers. Up until now, we had the architects of the plan, and now the people who were actually involved in her case are being brought to justice. So this, by way of background, I think it's more important that you hear from Rosa and Antonio. So first, I introduced one of the bravest women I've ever met, Rosa Gomez, who's going to tell about her quest for justice. So Rosa will speak in Spanish, and even though there's a far better translator beside me, I will attempt to translate. I do take a little bit of poetic license from time to time and give a bit more of an explanation, because I know the story. So, si no está exacto, entiende que estoy ampliando un poquito, ¿no? ¿Ok? Si no doy traducción exacta es porque a veces entiendo la historia y doy un poco de ampliarlo. Okay. I'm just justifying now my mistakes in advance. I feel intimidated having a professional interpreter beside me, right? Go ahead. Bueno, por favor.
Bueno, buenas tardes, gracias por estar acá.
Good evening.
Y disculpe si me emociono, porque realmente no han sido muchas veces en la cual yo he podido hablar así.
Please forgive me if I get all emotional, but there's not that many times that I'm able to speak like this.
Mis declaraciones siempre han sido a través de los juicios, que llaman 3.
My declarations have generally been in the trials. That I've done 3.
Yo fui detenida el 1 de junio del 76 y no era militante.
I was detained on the 1st of June 1976. I wasn't involved in politics.
En el primer momento que me detuvieron, empezaron las torturas.
From the first moment they detained me, they started the torture.
Torturas y violaciones, tanto a mí como a mi compañero, que a mí me sacan de la casa de mi madre.
They tortured me and they raped me and my partner.
No había ningún enfrentamiento, eran 8 hombres contra mí sola.
They took me from my mother's house. There wasn't any fighting or anything. They just 4 men came into the house and took me.
Y a mi compañero lo sacan del banco donde él trabajaba.
And my partner they took from the bank where he was working.
Él está desaparecido.
He still disappeared.
Tenía un bebé de 3 meses cuando fui detenida.
I had a baby of 3 months when I was detained.
Y mi detención en el D2 fue 9 meses.
And I was held in the D2, editorial comment D2, was a secret clandestine concentration camp detention center in Mendoza where they held the disappeared people in the period after 1976.
Es un centro clandestino del cual estuve, obvio, 9 meses sin saber mi familia de mí.
I was detained there for 9 months in this clandestine detention center, and my family didn't know anything about where I was.
Cuando fui detenida, desde ese mismo momento, fueron abusos desde la corriente, los golpes y la violación.
From the time I was detained, the abuses against me were electric shocks, beatings, and rape.
Voy a tratar de no quebrarme así. Cuando las torturas eran muy seguidas hacia todos los compañeros, en los 9 meses conocí toda la historia del D2 a través de mi olfato y mi oído. Fueron muchos compañeros desaparecidos y algunos se mataron ahí mismo, un compañero se ahorcó.
I was detained for 9 months, and during that time, especially at the beginning, I was blindfolded, so my sense of smell and my sense of hearing were very sensitive or heightened. I heard there was a lot of people that were of my companions that were tortured, and one person was killed there during the time I was there. At least one person.
En los interrogatorios que hacían después de las violaciones, eran antes o después de las torturas.
The rapes were either before or after the torture.
Llegaba a las celdas, entonces si había sido la violación en la sala de tortura, no me violaban en la celda, y si no era al revés, llegaba a la celda y me violaban.
If they raped me in the torture room, they didn't rape me in the cell, and if they raped me in the cell, they didn't rape me in the torture room.
Al principio era yo tratar de gritar, que me dejaran, lloraba, y los compañeros desde sus celdas, que no podían, así como Antonio, hacer nada por mí, después de violarme les pegaban y los torturaban.
Porque ellos gritaban.
Porque yo gritaba, claro, ellos gritaban que me dejara, sí.
So while they were raping me, I would scream, and the companions that were there would scream at them to stop raping me, and so then afterwards they would come and beat the people that the companions, because they had told them to stop raping me.
Era muy duro porque cada vez que me violaban me amenazaban con que me iban a quitar mi hijo, donde me lo iban a robar o iban a matar a mi mamá o a mis hermanos.
It was very difficult because each time they raped me, they threatened that they were going to take my child away, or they were going to kill my mother or my sisters, or my sisters or brothers, my siblings.
Mi compañero tiene que haber vivido una semana en la cual que estaba muy mal herido, muy mal con la tortura. Sabíamos los dos que estábamos ahí sin vernos.
I knew that my partner was there, and he was there, I think, for about a week, and he was terribly tortured, and during the time that he was there.
Cuando los milicos me violaban. Los compañeros, habían sido muchas mujeres también, que muchas están desaparecidas y muchas con el temor hasta hoy no pudieron hablarlo, por la vergüenza que uno pasa.
I was raped, and there were many other women who were raped as well, but many of the women who suffered the same as me, even to this day, they can't speak about it because they're embarrassed. They find it embarrassing. Yeah, shame. They're ashamed.
Esto de que han surgido los juicios a mí ha sido como una mochila que he sacado encima, donde lo he podido hablar, donde lo he podido denunciar, porque mientras estuve en Devoto intenté con la OEA hacer la denuncia, no funcionó. Cuando salí tampoco, porque los jueces y los fiscales, yo no sabía cómo se llamaban los hombres que me habían violado, pero los reconocí en el banco.
Yeah, okay.
Bueno, pero,
No, yeah,
sí.
While I was detained, I tried, when the Organization of American States came to visit us in the jails, I tried to make a denunciation of what happened, but nothing ever came of it. After I was released, I tried to go and make a complaint to the police or the prosecutors, but they said that they couldn't do anything. They gave as an excuse, for example, that I didn't know the names of the people, even though I saw them sometimes at the bank, and I saw the men who raped me at the bank or on the bus, and I told the prosecutors they wouldn't take any action.
Cuando iba a hacer las denuncias,
una cosa. So when the trials finally happened, it was like a burden that was taken off my back.
Es una cosa muy rara, ¿no? Pero gracias a Antonio, y por desgracia que él estuvo preso y vio, estamos acá unidos. Él vio lo que me hacían, entonces, gracias a que yo declaro y él me puede reconocer a través de internet, yo pude sentir lo que muchos compañeros sentían a través de Antonio, la impotencia de no poder ayudar. Entonces, esto que pasó, y hoy se lo tengo que agradecer a Lorne, porque ha sido la persona que ha podido sacarme una mochila, el poder hablarlo con gentes que no sean jueces.
She said that the fact that Antonio heard about this through the internet was very important, because she felt supported by him, and the fact that today she could come and speak just to people about it is very important, because it feels like she's being able to take a burden off of herself, because the other time she declared it was always in front of judges.
Yo tengo que agradecer todo esto a los juicios, porque el hecho de haber podido hablar en los juicios, ya sin nombre, en el 2006, pude ir a hacer la primera denuncia donde me la tomaron, porque durante los anteriores años jamás me tomaron una denuncia.
So it's only in 2006 that the prosecutor took my first statement, because up until then they refused to take statements. And so that was very important, that I could take the statements and then speak at the trials.
Esto es gracias al gobierno de Kirchner, que nos dio la posibilidad de poder hacer nuestras denuncias y abrir los juicios.
Because it was thanks to the government, the current government, the government of Kirchner, that opened the door to the possibility of the trials and of the being able to make the denunciations. So perhaps I forgot to say, I was supposed to, that during the period after 1983, when democracy was restored in Argentina, part of the deal with the military was that they would get an amnesty. So there were different amnesty laws that were passed. between 1983 and then several afterwards. Those laws prevented the trials from moving forward. It was only in 2006 that the Supreme Court declared the amnesty laws unconstitutional, that it was possible to start these trials. But the problem was that many of the charges were prescripted because there's a statute of limitations, but there's no statute of limitations on crimes against humanity. So that's why the trials can only go ahead if they're done in the context of crimes against humanity. Le expliqué que los juicios solo podían proceder por el statute de limitaciones, por prescriptos, salvo en el caso de crímenes en contra la humanidad. Ya le expliqué ese pedazo. Y la amnistía, la decisión de Corte Suprema en 2006, que no había explicado antes. Okay. Yo le expliqué la historia.
Bueno, los juicios han sido para mí y para muchos compañeros poder decir lo que no hemos podido decir nunca, de denunciar de los compañeros que la familia no sabían que habían pasado por el D2.
So the trials were very important because it was an opportunity for me to say what I'd never been able to say before, and for some of the families, they learned for the first time that their relatives had passed through the same secret detention center, D2.
Cuando yo declaré, muchos familiares se arrimaron a preguntar porque yo declaré que había un policía, que había un comisario, que había pasado un abogado. Entonces coincidía con lo que yo decía con las familias de ellos, que era en ese término que habían desaparecido.
So when I gave my statements, afterwards some of the relatives would come up and speak to me, and they discovered that what I was saying was consistent with what they had learned about how, as much as they learned about how their family members had disappeared.
Yo cuando en el juicio pude reconocer más o menos 40 policías, más los 3 que me violaron. Hay uno que no sé su nombre todavía, no está en la cara en prontuario.
During the trial, I was able to recognize 40 of the people who were involved in the torture and the 3 men who raped me.
2 de los que me violaron están detenidos en el 2011 con mi declaración, porque los pude reconocer.
2 of the 3 men who raped me have been detained since 2011 because I was able to unconditionally recognize them.
Y todo esto ha sido para mí un alivio porque mi olfato y mi memoria no me falló, porque después de los 3 meses me sacaron la venda y el perfume y el caminar los reconocí a los policías.
After 3 months they took off my blindfold, but even then I was able to recognize the policemen who were torturing me and raping me because I could tell by their voices and by their smells.
Con los juicios, nosotros estamos como la mochila afuera, ¿no? Ha sido muy difícil, pero tenemos unos jueces y abogados increíbles donde nos dan todo el apoyo. González Macías es nuestro juez que nos ha contenido.
She said with the trials it was taking a big burden off our backs, and we've had a lot of support from the prosecutors and from the judges themselves. Judge Macías, the judge who's involved directly in her cases, has been very supportive. No, está bien. Le dejamos que hable Antonio un poco. Okay, now Antonio, we'll get Antonio to talk for a bit about it, from his point of view. Habla en el micrófono. ¿Vas a hablar en español también?
Okay. Hello. No, en español así la...
No, pero ellos
me
traduzcan.
¿Oh, sí?
Sí.
Okay. Very well. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much to listen to our experience, our story. I can avoid getting emotional after going to that place and listen to Rosa. So I'm going to try to make sense of my story. At least keep me on track. Okay. I think I have a little concern about when we said the dirty war, because from my point of view, it wasn't a war. It wasn't a dirty war. All wars are dirty and nasty and inhuman, but because it wasn't a confrontation between two armies, it was a state terrorist. It was a military coup that, with all the force, all the resources, they attack and they repressed the opposition in a methodology that had been planned not only for Argentina but in the context of the Cold War and in Latin America. And the methodology of disappearing, go after civilians like us in order to capture their opposition was a methodology well planned. And even the rape, it was proved that was a method of terrorizing people and the population. And the army of Argentina and other countries in Latin America has a history of involvement in democracy. The democracies, they were weak, they were distorted, and they always were part of the political process. For decades, we don't have real democracy. And even the justice system was distorted. It was, corrupto, always. It was very difficult by the 60s, by my generation, the 60s, the 70s, to have hope for a popular government, of a democratic, truly democratic government. In that context of the Cold War, as I said before, and the expectation of the young people, some sector of society confronted I'm talking about the 60s, 1968, when I was in high school and going to university. It was an atmosphere of rebellions. So many people did whatever they, especially idealists, to trying to change the system. And in different way, they tried to modify the situation of social injustice. So that's my understanding of how the conditions were created even by political parties, by some sector of society, by the army that took power. But this time was very brutal. The method that they used were unbelievably brutal. In my case, I wasn't involved in politics, but I knew people. It was very difficult for any sensible young people to not to get involved in, or to know, especially if you were at the university or a student. So I knew my best friend from high school, he was involved in politics and in activism. Anyway, and the military, they took power the 24th of March, 1976. By June, and my friend, my very dear friend, which is disappeared, he disappeared a month after. By the 14th of June of 1976, people, civilian in civilian clothes, with guns, appeared at 12 o'clock when I wished to go for lunch on my house. I have to tell you that I always been at the time, I was running a small business with my brothers, a family business. It was a metallurgic, always related with construction. And we have employ like 30 people working for us. I was 27 years old. And we were building tanks to storage wine. Very ambitious. And I did that thanks to the democracy at the time that helped the medium and small industry, which is that's why I'm Peronist, because when in a country that there is job and there is education and there is work and help, you get a country that it will go ahead. And that was what I think Perón did for us at the time. I just leave it like that. So, we were taking advantage of the credit that the government at the time, like they are doing right now in Argentina, and with all the defect in this moment, to create jobs instead of cutting. So I was able, at the age of 27, to have industrial, a prominent industrial factory using the credit that they did for the small and medium enterprises. And working with co-ops, I was doing 24 tanks of 500,000 liter two-story wine. So it was a big, and we were doing it. Anyway, so I wasn't a terrorist, I wasn't a subversive, I was an empresario.
Businessman.
A businessman. So I'm working really hard since I got to Argentina, because I was born in Italy. And we went to Argentina escaping for the misery of the Second War. So I was an immigrant, and as an immigrant we worked really hard. And I collect wine, I collect grapes, I work in the olive industry, I did all the things that we're supposed to do. And my point of view is point of a worker. So from that sense, that's why I'm Peronist. I want to make that clear. Because Peronist is, the movement is, what it is Peronist? It's very difficult to explain. So at the time, my friend Edesio Villegas, which has disappeared, he was very involved with a left Peronist. So after the coup, of course, he has to hire away. So I help him. I help him because he was underground, because they tried to kill like many others. And for that reason, they kidnapped me. They came to my house, and the few police, and they say, okay, you have to, are you, yes, I am. So please, can you, they were, please, can you, let's go to the police station, you have to clarify some things. I said, well, can I tell my wife? I ran away, I know, because no, it's okay. And my neighbor was beside, right there. I said, what is going on? I said, well, these people, they want to, and then they got very, very upset, and they start, and then I ran after me, and they took me, and they put it in the car, started punching me, and then guys with machine guns came out. And that started my ordeal. So they right away, they pulled me on the back of a car, they blindfold me. Do you understand my thing? Yeah, okay. And they start punching me, and I said, why are you doing this? And they insulting me, they shut up. And then they realized my neighbor was following them. So it's like the movies. And this guy keep following, and they got upset, and they got more nervous, at the point that they say, we have to we have to do something about it. But anyway, somehow they lost him, and we got I know that, to the central police station of Mendoza, right beside the D2. It was a clandestine center located right beside the Casa de Gobierno, ¿cómo se dice?
Government house.
The government house, right downtown. You know, as other people that they took it in the mountain somewhere. No, it was right there. So a lot of people knew what's going on in there. Anyway, and then it's like arriving to the inferno, the hell. They throw me in a little cell, very small. I couldn't straighten my body, very dark, and they blindfold my hand tied up on my back and my legs. So I was like a sausage there, boom. So they leave me, and then there on the floor, and you can imagine at the beginning, half an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then you start, the only thing you hear is what's going on around here. It was a chaos. I heard children that then I recognized that they were the kids of a lawyer that I knew, that they killed him, Jorge Vargas. And his wife was there. That I recognized later. I hear people crying, voice of women, and all this commotion, people bringing in and out, and the time passed by. The first thing you want to do, you want to go to the washroom. And this is the most terrible thing. You want to go pee, and you pee your pants, because the pain is in, and then and other things. And then it looks silly. But imagine yourself there in the winter, and then you hear people screaming, people dying practically, because it's a lament of people very, it was hell. And the time passed by. When in the morning they opened the door, they said, who are you? I said, my name. And why you are here? Well, I don't know. You brought me here. I didn't remember what I said. Oh, you don't know. They start punching, and then you there. And they go to the other cell, and they do the same thing, and the same thing, and the same thing. And this going on for I can go on. Then they took it from that place to another cell, which was front of Rosa cells. There were like 14 cells. My name was number 8. And, well, they throw me there. Same thing. They only open the door in the morning when they change guards, when and they give you a little something to drink. And again, the beating, and you don't know why you're here, so you have to refresh your memory. Boom, 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 they left you there. They do the same thing with it. At the same time, when they left you there, tired, so imagine to have the hand tied on the back for hours, for days. You start having problems with the pain. And beside you, people dying, and at night, it was, I can go on and on, because we were there 112 days without seeing the light, without a bath. Oh, forget it. Only one time they take you to the bathroom, and it's the only time that they untie your hands to go to the washroom, and they were right there. And imagine the humiliation of women doing that. So that were the condition in that thing. Plus, you cannot start, and myself, like now, I was very nervous just to talk about this, and I couldn't sleep last night, like I couldn't sleep when I went to Mendoza. The time passed by, and you cannot sleep, and it's hell. And you become to get sick too. And another important thing, you don't have contact with another human being. And then you start thinking about yourself that you are a dead person and they're going to kill you anytime. At the same time, when they come, they say, okay, we're going to take you tomorrow. Be prepared, because we're going to take you to the barbecues. The barbecue, we're going to take you downstairs. And you see the other people coming back from electric shock, from torture and all that. So in my case, it was different than Rosa and other people. They right away, they took it to the torture chain. For me, it was like after 2 weeks. And it was terrible because I didn't know what they're going to ask me, what's going to happen. And at the same time, because when I was detained, I have my portfolio with checks, with some money, and they extortion my family. They want me to sign a check to pay salaries. They were stealing. And then I realized that they took over my shop and made my brothers and workers to do job for them. I mean, they were thieves. They were criminals. Okay, but going back to the D2, well, after a few weeks, they finally took me to the first interrogation. So what is the interrogation? They took me take me to downstairs, and before that they trying to disorient you. They punch you. When you get there, they sit on a table. Everything is dark, blindfold, and then they leave you there for a while. This was my first interrogatory. And then they came, the big bosses, and they start asking me my name, where you born, what you did, all the over and over again. At once I answer my questions, and then they start punching me here, boom, bam, and they become violent. Because they want me to tell them who I knew, to recognize that I was a subversive, that where I got the money to have my company. And I say, well, we work, my father is New York, saving money, descending here, all these things, and over again. And they say, well, at that time they didn't use electricity with me. They didn't use just a lot of beating. And they said, well, okay, we believe you now, but we have your wife, your family, your kids. And then that was the first one, which was easy. I said, well, then they threw me, they put me back on jail again. And at that time, I don't have my hand tied on my back, so I started to, at night time, open a little thing, a little mirilla.
People, I guess.
A little, and then I start seeing eyes, and one of the eyes that I saw was Rosa, and we start communicating by hands. I forgot to say a very important thing, that the previous day I saw I hear, because I couldn't see it, the rape of Rosa and the beating of the other prisoner. Because when this guard came at night, drunk, or after they're really picking up people, because that's their job, to go out and kidnap people, and through torture get more people, and that's the mythology. I hear the repressor going into Rosa's, and when we start screaming like other prisoners there, that we're able to scream, they came and they beat us up. So that's why Rosa, I believe, after that they suffer quietly, they rape and other abuses, because if you let the other people know that what they do, and they will react. because it is natural, the solidarity, and that's what I learned even after, that the great solidarity that I found on the bond between us in the D2 and then in prison. I have nothing to say of my fellow prisoners. They were a wonderful person, but I can talk a little bit later, because if not, I go off of track. But that was a very important thing that I hear what they were doing to other women and other prisoners, and that by itself is a sense of impotency. You can imagine. And I know the case of other prisoners. They were tortured or they raping their wife in front of them. Other stories that I hear, or in front of the children. Or anyway, going back to my case, October 5th, it was my wife. At the time was pregnant with my daughter, my only daughter, and she was born the 5th of August. And they knew. And that's the day that they took me for the second time to interrogation. And this time they were very, very brutal. They said that they have my wife, they're going to kill her and this and that, so I should tell the truth. And what truth? I told you already the truth. And yes, I knew my friend Edesio Villegas, but I don't know what he was doing. He was a wonderful person, anything. So, and they were very brutal. Then they used all other methods they totally naked me. They put in a metal thing. They apply electricity and all kind of things. And they left me there. And that was the day of my daughter's birthday, the 5th of August. Yeah, I'm okay this time. Because last time, even when I was in front of the judge, I didn't want to say this because I got very emotional. I was afraid of breaking down. Remember? Yeah. But now I'm okay, better than yesterday. Okay, so.
Hablas un poco sobre cómo encontraste a Rosa.
Okay. So by but I want to tell you a little bit about what. Okay, I've been there in the D2 until October the 4th. One day they came and they took me to the penitentiary of Mendoza, which is a regular jail. But that jail, where they have a special section of the jail which has been independent, totally independent from the rest of the jail. So we don't have contact with this. We don't have newspaper. We don't have letters. Nothing. All the time that we're there, we have completely in communication with the exterior. We didn't know what's going on. Same thing when we were in D2. My family, they didn't know that I were there. So when I get to jail, they register me there. But instead of put me with the regular prisoners, they took me to the solitary compartment section. And I was there for almost 70 days. Although it was different, because I could see the light for the first time in 6 months. I see the light, which is, to see the light is something so simple, and it's so important to see the light. So I become alive. I said, well, okay, I think I made it. I'm not dead. But they put me in a situation of punishment again. And I don't know why exactly, but I think because I didn't want to sign anything that I can without reading. So I have another interrogation there. And the regime in jail was very brutal too. There were 14 cells. I was in number 14, naked all day. Let's see, at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, the guard came and they make a line of guards. They opened cell by cell. Each prisoner, which is the punishing section, these are the section of the jail where they punish prisoner. So you have to run with the little water, with the little thing that you make your necessity, run to the other corner of the jail, throw the thing there, get a little water, and come back. But you have to run, because they are the guards with sticks, and they try to treat you, to fall down and beat you, and so you have to run. The first you get there, less beating you have. Then you run back, and you take a little mattress, a dirty mattress that you sleep, and take the mattress again to another room, to the end. And then after that, you go and ask for a drink, and you have to, and by the time you get with a little hot water and a little piece of bread to the other side, you lost your bread because they are beating. So it was, and I was with the beer, and I was a subversive, a terrorist. And that is the level. That is the methodology of the Argentinian military to exterminate. We are irrecuperate for societies. That's the level that I was in. So I'm telling all this because the sadist and all this have been engineering to break down people and to drive you crazy. Of course, after so many days there, I was crazy. I was talking with the ants, with the flies. I mean, I was going crazy. Finally, by December, December before Christmas, they took me back. They put me back to another pavilion. They shaved me, and then I became in contact with the other prisoners, and then my life began again. And my fellow prisoners thought that I was crazy. So then I started to live again. Although the condition improved, but it was very rough because we still were under the army in the section of the jail. Very tough condition. We were all day in jail, in a cell, 2 people in a little cell, 2 hours to go out, and then you come back. And I'm still there. We were. They can take us anytime for inside the jail, interrogatory with torture. That happened to me once, with the cooperation of the people, personnel in jail. Well, then one day they took me to the solitary confinement where I used to be for 15 days. But not only me, other prisoners too. And then they took us to a military commander, and then they told us that we're going to be subject to war, Consejo de Guerra.
War tribunal.
War tribunal. War tribunal.
Military commission would be the, well, military commission like Guantanamo, same idea.
And it was unreal because so when I get there, it was a room like this in the army, and there was an scenario on top, and there were a table, and there and we were against the wall, and then they said, okay, now you have 10 minutes to meet your lawyer, your defense lawyer. And they took me in the other room, and they asked me my name, what's your name, this. Okay, we don't have much time. He said, from that table there, and there was a table with some guns and things, I don't even know, guns and artifacts. So from all objects there, or guns, which belong to you? I say,
That's his lawyer.
That's my lawyer. It was it was a joke. And then I start saying, listen, I was a businessman and this and that. I never have a gun on my life. and then okay, really? And then, well, it was a joke. And then, well, okay, now the general came, everybody stand up, and they said, well, the second Consejo de Guerra,
military commission,
war military trial in Mendoza, blah blah blah, all the himno nacional,
the national anthem,
all those pomposity, and these three, one from the army, and the other for the aviation, for the Air Force, and the Navy. They were there, and then they start accusing directly. And the first thing to accuse was Rosa, I think. Yeah, they gave her 4 years, right, at that time.
Que a mí me detuvieron porque supuestamente ella era una jefa de guerrilla.
She was supposedly head of the guerrilla.
And then when my name was there, okay, they said that this tribunal declared incompetence in your case. All this, and I said, really, and I was happy, but I was crazy. I mean, anyway, but still they didn't leave me free. I still stayed another year under the executive power. But then, to make the story short, because I was born in Italy, the embassy and my mother, the only way to get free is to expel me to Italy. So that's why I got out. What other thing I can say? The people that I met in that period, for me, they were wonderful fellow. They were not terrorists. They were some more passionate people, but they all were. We were very solidarity with each other. They were wonderful human beings. Some more idealists than others, trying to change the inequality and the situation of social injustice in Argentina. Idealists, product of the 60s, and they say terrorists when many of them got out of jail. There is no one case that I remember of revenge for the terrible thing that they did with us. No one case. And the repressor, the torture, the criminals, they were free. And no one gets killed, or maybe people start saying bad things to them, and they have to leave the restaurant or something like that. But nobody get killed that I know. What else I can say? How I met yeah?
¿Cómo conocí Rosa del juicio?
Okay. I went to Italy, but then I came to Canada because my family have to get out of Argentina too. So here in Canada, I met Lon, and we became my lawyer and friend, and we work in solidarity for Argentina since '78. But then we did a lot of things to trying to inform Canadian, which we are very lucky to. Many Canadians really did a lot of work on solidarity with Argentina. great people. But recently, I always follow what's going on in Argentina. You start working here, but never you forget what happened, and you keep it in your mind. But one day I was reading a newspaper online, and I saw the picture of Rosa. And then I said, I have to go, because Rosa has the courage to come out and declare about raping. Because rape, well, when you have a force that throw people out of the plane, they kill people, that's a horrible thing. Well, in a macho society, well, rape, well, at least they don't kill you. They rape you, which is terrible. And even the distortion of justice in that sense, that a woman, they raped me, and they didn't believe, because it had been case that there is not enough evidence for the judge, her own testimony to prosecute the accuser. So it was for me very my urgency to testify that I saw that. And after that, a lot of more women, and then we know there was a methodology in every clandestine center. The rape was everyday thing. What else? I mean, by the news the terrible thing that these criminals did with stealing babies. Young women that they were pregnant, when they were kidnapped, they make have the baby and kept the baby and then kill the mother. I mean, horrible, horrible things. So, knowing now that being in the court and the sentence is like a reivindication of democracy, of long struggle of human rights organization and the new generation's struggle for justice, because it took few democratic processes of government in order to get to prosecute these people, these criminals. ¿No?
¿Tienes algo más por decir?
Well, maybe just a little bit, because see, in in 1982, the first democratic government trying to prosecute the junta, but then the second democratic government, they released them, they pardon, right, Menem, and then because this military, they have a lot of power still to condition the political system like they did before. And it took a big crisis, and the government, the actual government of Argentina, after 2001, to take human rights as a state policy. And then everything has to change. He had the opportunity to remove some judges and and then things start to change, as Rosa said. And but it took 30 years. So that's why I'm happy that these people are in jail, and we can do that. And thanks to the democratic, and for me it's a triumph of democracy, of the state of law, and still there's a lot to do, and still the democracy is fragile, and we have to be vigilant, because it could happen again. Label people, and happen what happened to us. Well, I will answer question because I don't want to be all over the place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosa and Antonio and Lauren, and Teresita as well. It's such an inspiring story, and I just want to thank you personally, both of you, for your courage and for wanting to share with us and the public the terrible things that happened and the way in which, the really unlikely way in which you were able to come together so many decades after that torture and violations to show an example of how to achieve justice. So thank you very much. We probably have about 20 minutes for questions. So we don't have any roving microphones or anything like that. So if you could just speak up, I'll recognize people, and if you just want to sort of signal with your hand or something, I'll try and keep track. And I will repeat the questions for the video. Okay. Sure.
Quiero preguntarle a Rosa si fue arrestado al mismo tiempo que Antonio.
The question was to Rosa, were you arrested at the same time as Antonio was?
Fuimos detenidos en el mismo tiempo, pero no nos conocíamos. Yo fui detenida el 1 de junio y Antonio el 14 de junio.
We were arrested.
Yeah, we were arrested more or less at the same time, but we didn't know each other. I was arrested on the 1st of June, Antonio on the 14th.
Juntaba gente que no conocía y armaron una causa. Eso fue el Consejo de
Yeah.
Guerra.
And then what they did was they brought a bunch of people together that never knew each other, and they said they were a group, and they made a military commission and charged them all with offenses.
But can I add a little thing?
Yeah.
In between, we were remaining there for a long time, but they were killing, we assume, because they are disappeared, other people. But with us, they didn't know what to do, and they put us in like in one kind of case. It doesn't have logic what they did, but.
And I know that there is a lot of courage to see some of your experience and because of the feelings and the memories. So I just want to acknowledge that. And my question is, I know that for a long time in Latin America, people didn't want to acknowledge what had happened, and there was this division of class and political ideas and a lot of brainwash about you need to keep lineal and continue playing the game of the court. So what is the situation now in
Mucha lavado de cabeza, la situación sigue igual, la situación no ha cambiado de alguna manera.
Sí, ha cambiado por lo menos en la Argentina porque tenemos jueces y porque nuestra presidenta ha tratado de cambiar algunas leyes, ¿no?
Yeah, things have changed because we have judges now, fair judges, and our president has also tried to change the attitude.
La diferencia de clase la hicieron ellos, ¿no? O sea, más allá, digamos, de todo esto, hay también desaparecidos y hay niños, eso está afuera, ¿no? Pero ha cambiado y tiene que cambiar mucho más.
Yeah, the difference of classes, they did that. There's 30,000 disappeared. There's disappeared children. Things have changed, but things have to change a lot more.
Can I add?
Yeah.
It was. We have to mention that our deal. It was terrible, but our families outside, they were a very hard time. So, and I want to point out the work of the mother of May Square. Those mothers and those women, like the grandmothers, they did a lot of. It was very strong and unique movement that has amazingly, they now they are very powerful and inspiration for the rest of Latin America and the world. So, and in all these years, after each democratic government, we advance more. We have less frustration, and the new generation of Argentinian, they have. I think they are stronger and very positive. So democracy will with this judge, with this sentence, it will dignify democracy and the struggle.
I want to add a few things because these are things that Rosa told me. And I mean, first of all, when she was first released, she couldn't. She wanted to talk, but no one wanted to listen because people were afraid. And there was this sort of mantle of silence, and I think that made things even more difficult for her, that her family didn't want to hear. And then when she went to the police and tried to get them to take action, they wouldn't do anything. And this went on all the way through from 1983 to 2006, when the amnesty finally came. And that was that opened the door, and the change in the policy of the government that made it possible. And when I was in Mendoza, you know, it was so moving because there were all these kids, you know, like recent graduates from law school, you know, and the only thing they wanted to do was to work on the trials. That's all they wanted to do, you know, and for them it was their passion. And you saw that finally there was a space that allowed the young people to participate in a process of democratization, but real democratization at a profound level, of eliminating the mantle of silence and the impunity that had existed in their society for 30 years. Okay. Okay, que más que tienes el caso de que ellos también se acercaron así.
Claro, ellos me están cuidando permanentemente.
Yeah.
Me pidieron una custodia que la tengo actualmente todavía.
Yeah. When Rosa, when she testified at the beginning, the judge was worried for her safety, so he ordered 24/7 security. So she had 2 young policemen protecting her. But there is a change in attitude. You know, it takes a long time to change, to create a different type of headspace in society. And these trials are so profoundly important, not only because that they bring justice, but that they disclose what happened, and they make people aware of what happened, and so that the mantle of silence is lifted. And so that, you know, there isn't, that people can live in a society where everything is true. You know, and I think it's the same thing that's happening to us in Canada with the residential schools. I mean, we've lived a lie in our country that we're a country that respects human rights, and we were participating in a genocide, or an attempt of genocide of the First Nations that went on for 30, 40 years, and I don't think we even fully, 100 years, and we don't even fully understand yet what happened.
Yeah.
And our society has to account for what we did in the same way, and until we do that, we're not going to be free of this shame, in the same way that the society in Argentina has to account for what happened. It's just another facet of the same reality. So we can learn from them, they can learn from us, and we learn from each other. But the important thing is that there can't be impunity, and there has to be truth.
For the viewers online, forgive me for not having repeated the question. It was, what's the situation like in Argentina today as far as awareness goes around these atrocities? The back there?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing some stories and stories that you had to experience that in your lives. Thank you so much for bringing it to us here. And I'm curious, Rosa, if when you testified, whether other women who have experienced the same kind of torture, you felt freer to also come forward. Were you one of the first people
que salió en el
been a greater acknowledgement of rape as torture
hubo realmente un reconocimiento de la violación como tortura.
in countries since then?
The question to Rosa was whether other women have come forward publicly with allegations of having been raped at the same time, and whether or not there is a more public recognition now of rape as torture in Argentina.
Okay. No, lo voy a contestar.
Sí, hubieron compañeras que dijeron que le habían violado, pero no pudieron decir quién eran. Yo sí lo pude ver porque yo estuve 9 meses, primero estuve 3 meses con vendada, pero después reconocí por mi olfato y el oído las personas que me violaron, ¿no?
There were other women who testified that they'd been raped, but they were not able to identify the rapist. But because I was held for so long, for 9 months, and after 3 months blindfolded, but I could recognize the smell and the voices, but then after that they took the blindfolds off. So yes, I was able to identify the men who did this to me.
Porque yo reconocí la persona.
But there have been another trial in different province that they came out.
Yeah, Rosa was forced to do a what do they call it, a lineup? Right? La línea que te pusieron.
Mi testimonio fue, los pude reconocer, entonces fue lo que pudieron hacer, como ponerlo como delito de lesa humanidad, ¿no?
No, pero estoy diciendo que te obligaron a reconocerlos en
Sí,
yeah.
me obligaron.
They put a big line up there and they tried to hide them,
En rueda de
and she was pretty, she knew exactly who they were. She didn't have any doubt at all. She was able to recognize them. And I think that she said the judge was very impressed by that, by her level of certainty. Yeah, and it's sort of funny. These judges, they didn't know anything about any of this, and they went through the experience as well, And Rosa, told me the stories about the judge being very protective of her, right? And the defense counsel for the trial now is starting. There's been other trials. In the first trial, the one that Antonio and Rosa testified, were the people at the top who planned the repression, and then there was a separate trial for the people who were directly involved in the concentration camp at D2. And this trial, the one that's starting in December, is the third trial that Rosa is involved in, where these are the men who actually were involved in raping and torturing her, and the lawyers are trying to force her to give, oral testimony and do psychological reports, and so far the judges denied all of their motions as a way of trying to protect Rosa. So it's been a transformative experience, I think, for everybody. Yeah.
Would you say that nowadays the government of Cristina has become
The question is the government of the current president perceived as being left-wing.
Se lo toma como tendencias que advierte el gobierno de Argentina.
Yes. Bueno, no, it's scary, it's progresista.
If it's a left wing,
Yeah.
no, it's a progressive government.
Yeah.
It's a progressive government. It's within capitalists. It's a capitalist government with inclusion. It's different than what they're doing in Europe and North America. They are spending money in order to create job. They're recuperating in the 90s, they sold everything to them. Now they are recuperating all the resources, and they are looking to other countries in Latin America. They don't look to Europe or to North America. They don't listen to the International Monetary Fund. But it's a capitalist system with inclusion. And that's really, it's a Peronist government, which is it's not it's a progressive government. Still a lot of things to do, in my opinion, and there is a lot of challenge. But it's since 2001 that the country was completely devastated, that didn't exist like country. They are now they are jobs, they are paying their debts and so they did a lot of good things, in my opinion, that they are good in a good direction with a lot of things to do. But it's not a leftist government. That's my opinion. It's not. No. It's a progressive government.
Sure.
I don't know how big Mendoza is, so I'm curious about the effect psychologically of having to live in the same place where workers and people who are responsible are in the bank and the grocery store and everywhere you walk for 20, 30 years of your life. What is the effect?
The question was not knowing exactly the size of the city of Mendoza or the region of Mendoza. What is it like to have to live for 20 or 30 years in the same city and be in the bank and in the bus and the grocery store with the people who've committed these acts of torture against you? What's the psychological effect of that?
Mi experiencia fue, no sé, creo que fue la necesidad de encontrar a mi compañero. Yo buscaba a los policías en la calle, sí, lo buscabas. Lo buscaba porque yo quería encontrarlo, los que me habían violado, con sus familiares.
No entendí. Porque ella preguntaba cuál era su experiencia
de haber vivido con...
No, que vos estabas, vivía en Mendoza, en el mismo lugar que lo torturó.
Yo lo buscaba en la gente para poderles gritar que ellos habían sido los vivos.
Oh, okay. She would look for them to be able to scream that these were the people that raped me.
Porque quería saber dónde estaba mi compañero, porque sabía que un día lo iba a ver en la calle, como los vi a mis
And I wanted to find them because I wanted to know what they did to my partner, my companion.
Como vi a los que me violaron.
Because he was disappeared.
Y los vi en sus lugares de trabajo, de los cuales los denuncié.
And I saw them and I went and tried to denounce that they were there.
Creo que fui inconsciente, ¿no? Pero nunca tuve miedo, ni ahora.
She said, I don't know, maybe it's unconscious but I never was afraid then or now.
Nunca pensé que iban a haber juicio, pero tenía todos los policías a mi cabeza y los tengo.
I never thought there would be a trial, but I have memorized all the police in my head then and now.
Hoy puedo caminar tranquila en la calle.
Now I can walk peacefully in the streets.
question essentially boils down to there have been essentially what do we know about whether the extent to which any of the perpetrators from Argentina have found their way to Canada, either as refugees or by other means, and has there been any attempt or to bring those people to justice or to root those people out and identify them?
Hay dos que se fugaron, dos que condenaron en San Juan, que no sabemos dónde están.
Okay, well, there's two torturers that were in San Juan, another province, but they ran away and we don't know where they are. But I think in terms of Canada's, I'm not aware of, I mean, when I was doing refugee law, I remember there was one policeman from Mendoza who came and tried to make a refugee claim, and as far as I know, I don't think he was accepted. But I mean, I'm not aware of any cases of any people that were implicated in the repression who came to Canada, but it's certainly possible that happened, because it would, you know, the fact that someone was a policeman in Argentina wouldn't have automatically alerted the authorities in Canada that this person might have been involved in war crimes or crimes against humanity. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, when these people would have probably immigrated, there was much less of an awareness of the possibility that people could be coming to Canada and seeking, you know, to obtain residence here, even though they were involved. Today, there's a much more heightened awareness of those issues. So I'm not aware of any cases myself at this stage.
Hace 4 años reconocimos uno y se vio de Italia y lo trajeron de
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. There have been other cases in other countries. For example, there was somebody. Rosa was just telling me somebody in Italy. They found him and he was brought back. Y después Atis estaba en España.
Y Rico en Italia.
Yeah, Rico won and then Astiz, who was one of the most notorious torturers who infiltrated the Mothers of May Square and then was personally responsible for the kidnapping and murder of 2 French nuns. So the French government was particularly anxious that he get brought to justice, and he was, I think, extradited. Atis, no, from the...
Fue antes. Rico fue hace 3 años atrás, cuando lo nombramos, él estaba en el gobierno, o sea, en el gobierno de Jaque, y cuando lo nombramos, que sabía que había puesto de servicio de seguridad, se fugó a Italia, pero lo extraditaron, después se lo encontraron.
Okay, one is, she just said there's someone named Rico who when he was accused of being involved, he fled to Italy and then he was extradited back to Argentina. So there've been a few cases like that of people, and there was somebody from Mexico too, right?
No.
There've been a few cases of people that were brought extradited from other countries, but I'm not aware of Canada.
Well, there is the case of Romano, our case, the judge. A judge. Okay, you can explain.
I didn't know. I didn't tell this. Well, one of the, and maybe this will be where we'll end up. One of the amazing or strange anecdotes of the experience that was when Antonio was testifying, they pulled out his old file and had his confession that he'd signed under torture. And of course, Antonio was asked if he'd signed this confession, and he said, yeah, it was blank, but now it had been filled in. And in the civil law process, when someone is being charged with an offense, they do an interrogation in front of a prosecutor, and the prosecutor countersigns the statement in front of you. And of course, in Antonio's case, he signed a blank piece of paper, but it had been filled in after the fact. So this was a fraud, which is a criminal offense in Argentina. And when they looked to see who had signed countersigned Antonio's confession, it was somebody by the name of Romano, who at that time, confirmó lo de Antonio fue Romano.
Claro, sí, pero Romano, Miretti y Carrizo eran los que estaban en ese momento.
But Romano, when Antonio was taken, was era fiscal, and then he was a prosecutor, and then a few years later he was appointed a judge. And when Antonio was testifying, he was still acting as a judge. He was the Chief Justice of Mendoza. And so this is one of, the contamination of the rule of law by appointing the torturers and people complicit in the torture to positions of authority. Anyway, he ended up being charged and fled to Chile and was just recently extradited back from Chile to face charges in Argentina.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
And now he's in jail, in a regular jail. No.
So sometimes there's justice. Yeah.
Is that it for questions? Well, thank you all very much for coming tonight. Muchas gracias. And muchas gracias to Rosa and to Antonio for having traveled here to speak with us today. A round of applause. And thank you to Teresita Salinas Artini, who pinch hit very quickly here to provide interpretation. So thank you very much, Teresita. I'd like to thank Simon Fraser University's Vancity Office of Community Engagement, who put the funding together to make the rental of this space possible, as well as the archiving of this online for posterity. Thank you very much to the Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers, our partner hosting tonight, Lauren Waldman, who's the president of CARL, and Lobat Sadr Hashemi, without whom this event really would not have taken place. And it was certainly a pleasure for us as BC Civil Liberties to be able to tag along and participate tonight. So thank you very much, you all. If you want more information about the really important work that CARL is doing, they have a little bit of a complicated web address, which is a bilingual acronym. So if you search Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers in Google or Bing or the search engine of your choice, you will find their website and all of the great work that we're doing. We're at www.bccla.org. Thank you, everyone, very much for coming.